Welcome to today's Real Talk, where we host live, honest, and authentic conversations around mental health topics. Today's topic in hand will be about stress and anxiety. And before we get started today, I would like to begin with the Territory Acknowledgement. So I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the territories that we are on today. And while we gather today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the territories we each call home. The land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Mississaugas of Scugog, Hiawatha, and Alderville First Nations, and the Métis Nation. This territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. The treaties that were signed for this particular parcel of land are collectively referred to as the Williams Treaties, 1923. And so we do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve in our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. We need to protect and honor the history of the people and these lands. So please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and to consider how we can, in our own way, try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So, stress and anxiety. Ensuring our mental health is just as critical as ensuring our physical health. Notions to appear strong, tough, or having it all together can prevent many to overlook their mental health and get the support they may be needing. Stress and anxiety impact us daily and are common. So how do we move through these experiences? How do we become comfortable and well acquainted with something we were taught to maybe avoid, but what is something that's a part of the human experience? We're going to explore that today through this discussion. So please join me in welcoming our two panelists for today. Dr. Tommy Mitchell, so mental health and wellness coach at Holistic Wellness Strategies, and Rochelle Pexon, so owner and co-founder of the Canadian Psychologist Network and also the Center for Mental Health and Addictions. Welcome today. How are you both doing?
Doing wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Hey there, Rachel. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So, if we were to describe to someone who is unfamiliar with concepts of stress and anxiety, how would we tease them apart? And what role do they play in our lives? Tell me.
Well, stress is part of life. There's no way to avoid it. And there's two types of stress. There's the distress, which is, your car broke down, your house got vandaled, bad stuff. And then there's eustress, which is like you're getting married, that's stressful. You're moving for a promotion, that's stressful, but it's good, right? So that's that. Anxiety, yes, it starts off with stress, but anxiety is there in the absence of stressor. Like it starts to intrude with relationships, whether personal, professional, right? It's more than, a season or an event that you're worked over, which is normal. Like, again, stress is part of life. And I want to make sure that everyone is aware that it is normal to feel stress. It's how we respond to it and how long that feeling of stress or anxiety lasts in us. That's where we get concerned.
Yeah. Rachel, how about you? How would you tease them apart?
Well, as simple as it is, you're right, Tommy. Stress is around us. It can be as simple as, breaking your nail when you have a party to go to, or as bad as, I guess, not being able to attend or being late in a very important appointment. I think it is the way that you feel when you're faced with a situation, whether real or perceived, as long as you perceive it as important in your life, then that can bring you stress, right? So it can be as like I said, as tiny as, not being able to get the coffee before going to your office, or actually getting into an accident before you reach your office. So it's really perception, and also, um, I guess, the key word there is if it's real or perceived, because we all know that people think differently, and it's basically where you are during an unfavorable circumstance in your life, or at the time of your life. So that's what it is for me. And anxiety is your body's reaction to the tension of stress or stress that you feel.
Right.
Whether you're able to manage your reaction or response to that stress is what basically makes a difference.
Right.
You know?
You touched on something really interesting there. Perception. How do we understand what is real and what is not for ourselves?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess also, in addition, the difference between stress and anxiety is how much the time that you are actually feeling it. So anxiety tends to linger more, and also, I guess you're right, Tommy. It actually affects your relationships, and not just that, even your goals. If you're anxious to go out, but you need to go out to actually go meet this person because you have a special project or important thing that you have to meet with, but you're anxious, or you have this anxiety to go out in public, then that's going to be a problem, right? Not just with relationships, it's with your career, or your basically your entire life.
Yeah. You're right on the ball there. Like the relationship with self, and also the relationship with self to the world.
That's exactly
How
it.
I'm interacting with it. Yeah.
And the key is function, right? When we diagnose someone as a physician, we diagnose someone with anxiety or depression, it typically impacts their function. There's an impairment, right? So we go through, your family, your personal relationships, your work relationships, and looking at also past situations too, because you might not have realized that this diagnosis that you have has been there for years.
Right.
Just coped, right, with it.
Yeah. What kind of, if you can speak to this, what kind of what opening is presented when people understand this is what it has been this whole time?
Oh, it's priceless.
Yeah.
Like the sense of relief, like, oh, and just feeling that like they've been listened to, right? That's one, especially someone who's questioning. Then there's those who are in denial. They're like, there's really no. But then when you sit with them, you gain trust over time. They're like, yeah. Or definitely if they bring in other people to collaborate the stories, it's like, okay, now do you see what we're talking about? But you know what? There's hope. We can help you feel more relaxed, more zen, and be happier and function better.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of leads into, the next question. What has been your personal journey or relationship to stress and anxiety? And where would you say that relationship is now?
Do you want to go, Rochelle?
Rochelle, yeah. Rochelle?
Yeah,
I can think of one big thing in my life that could have caused a lot of stress, but fortunately didn't, because I know how to handle it. I can manage that. Raising 5 boys. It presented a lot of opportunities for stress, honestly, but knowing how to manage your emotions, and I can't say it's a walk in the park. Of course, it's not. But knowing and accepting the reality of my role as a parent that time, that I can fail, and that boys are just going to move a lot, and they can, fight with each other, and you know how boys are. But just knowing that they're children, and I guess it's knowing the situation. That is what gives you control of it. So, and it's knowing yourself, knowing that you can handle some things that will arise is actually a big help. um, it forces you to be creative problem solver.
Yeah.
You get to be creative when you're stressed sometimes. um, it fuels you, it gives you energy. But those are, I think, the positive stress that I feel. Honestly, I'm the type of person that I don't dwell with a lot of negative stress. When I feel negative stress, I would think about if I should approach it now or sit it down for like not deal with it for a while and then
Mhm.
come back to it when I'm ready. That's how I deal with it, really.
Yeah.
It's very helpful.
Did you did you arrive at, how did you arrive at understanding stress and anxiety? Before, when you became a mother, was that something that was taught to your parents or caregivers? Like, how did you get that learning?
I think I actually observed it from my mom. She was a mayor in our town, and she's handled a lot of issues, of course, political issues, and in the Philippines, you know how it's like. But she's grace under fire. And I think I learned it from her without her teaching me directly, just observing how she handled it.
Yeah, absolutely. That importance of modeling, right? That we get to see. How about
Yes.
you, Tommy?
Yeah, great question. So again, I'm very level-headed. However, I also have this saying, go big or go home. And I applied that to my career, my profession, my business. And then it was great BC before COVID and before children.
Right.
Okay.
I like
Then my
that.
bandwidth was stretched to max. And then the anxiety, the stress was there. I internalize it. I have coping strategies. I'm very bubbly, happy go lucky. But there
Mhm.
gets to the point where you reach your breaking point. You're like, okay, unless I need to make a change and do
Yeah.
something, otherwise this stress will destroy me and what's important for me.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I had that personal experience with that and burnout. And that's part of the reason I do what I do, because I'm very passionate about mental health and wellness. And
Mhm.
especially for us type A personalities, our drive is great, but it's a double-edged sword. It's a blessing to get you into the programs you want to get into. But if you don't channel that well and balance, it
Yeah.
can get you in trouble with in your health. And we see so many professionals and others struggle with balance and burnout and anxiety. So for me, it's definitely very personal. Like I am a pretty chill person, but even
Mhm.
Superwoman or I have my Achilles heel. Like I have my weaknesses, and
Yes.
Of
like you said,
course.
Rochelle, with having five boys, yeah, imagine
Yeah.
three brothers. That was not fun. But I mean, being a parent, right, in
Yeah.
this crazy world and wanting the best for your children, that definitely adds to that stress, anxiety, because you worry about them.
Mhm.
can,
Mhm.
can, can I actually add something too? Do you
Of
find
course.
that, your faith actually helps too? I mean,
100.
I don't want to sound preachy, but it's that's how I do it also in my life. You know,
Definitely.
whatever religion I guess you have.
Yes, for sure. Like I
Yeah.
look at the wellness wheel. That's my business is called Holistic Wellness Strategies. And one of the pies and the 8 parts of it is spiritual wellness. So
Mhm.
studies show that a connection to that higher power, God, Yahweh, Muhammad, whoever it is
Yeah.
for you, for me
Mm-hmm.
it's God, like
Mhm.
that is important. That grounds you. That's like, okay, that belief that everything's gonna be okay, that I'm
Yes.
gonna weather this storm
Yeah.
really helps. Like
Yes.
so thank you, Rochelle. That is very, very good
Oh.
point. Spiritual
Mm-hmm.
wellness is definitely
Yes.
part of it, just like emotional wellness, physical wellness, financial wellness, intellectual wellness. So yes, your faith is important.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes me think about the idea of knowing that there's things in the universe that are already in motion outside
Yeah,
of your control.
yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And Tomi, so I want to also ask about, in terms of your learning, the modeling that you might have received as a youngster.
Yes.
What was the interactions around stress and anxiety?
Well, my dad is very type A, driven. I took those traits and I ran with them.
Hmm.
My mom is more laid back. There's a little bit of balance, but there was, like you, Rochelle, there was no talk about mental health. Like, zip,
Right.
ditto.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and especially in a faith-based home, it was like, why would you be worried? Do not worry,
Yeah.
do not be dismayed. You know, great. But guess what? Many people with faith worry with
Still
anxiety,
worry.
depression, etc., etc.
Mhm.
That's another story entirely. For me, it came in my self journey as an adult. You know,
Yeah.
through life experiences, moving across the globe, and just challenges and opportunities, and just coming to terms with what I believe in. And then also my career as a family practitioner. I'm a family doctor and I have been for over a decade. And seeing patients, you know, for 3, 4 generations, and seeing the trends in families, and seeing what are the root causes of all these problems,
Mhm.
and just forming my own set of like, okay, this is my framework, this is what I believe in, it's grounded by science. And I went from there. So really my connection with anxiety or mental health was more as an adult,
Right.
and especially since being a parent, being a business owner, and a pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah, makes sense. So, how does the way we think and talk about stress and anxiety impact our experience of it? So, and that of others in our social sphere. So, if Tommy, you want to.
Yeah, our mind is powerful. So if we have this negative mindset where it's like, woe is me, I'm not going to learn, catastrophizing, just glass is half empty kind of thing, that will definitely negatively impact you. It is, studies have shown it can, you know, stress can shrink your brain. Okay, y'all who are listening, stress is no joke. Shrinking brains.
Yeah.
It can affect your heart, your lungs. Like risk factor for so many illnesses are stress related. There is some relationship.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's my main point. Rochelle, you can go. I love this topic, I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah,
No, no, no,
absolutely.
it's true. I actually, you mentioned that proverbial phrase, cup half full or cup half empty. It's true. Stress can be felt differently just by looking at it with different point of views, it is felt by, I guess, by people differently in their own experiences, right? It is never objective, it's always subjective. It's whoever feels it. It's like the clouds or the sky is falling, so
Yeah.
whoever is experiencing it, we can say, no, you're not stressed out. It's only the person that's saying I'm stressed out that knows they're stressed out.
Yeah.
So the way I think about it and talk about it with the people that surrounds me is, I'm very close to my sister, and
Mhm.
and whenever she experiences stress, I would say, be easy on yourself. you know if you didn't do the thing, because I think she's like you, Tommy. She's a type A. She wants to control everything too. And when when she feels that she's out of that range, she would spiral. And I would say, be kind to yourself. You deserve to relax. You don't have to be successful in everything. You don't have to be perfect in everything. You just let it let it go how it's going to go, and then when you're ready to face it, then that's when you solve it, or that's when you approach it. And basically that's how I guess I explain uh, to people how they're feeling and how I can help them navigate through it. I know that I influence a lot of people in my life because I have a big
Mhm.
family, and I make sure that on my own, I make sure that I show them that problems that you see that makes you stressful or that triggers you is not forever. It will pass. It will, maybe you'll really feel the impact of it for a while,
Right.
but it's not the end of the world.
Yep.
Yeah. And a really important point that I'll be amiss not to mention that is related to stress and anxiety to varying degrees is a topic called resiliency, because that's part of that
That's
mindset,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
for myself, I was born with nothing. Okay, my family was poor,
Yep.
right? So we had to kind of keep on. I've seen stressful situations from an early age, not having enough,
Right.
and seeing
Right.
how my parents dealt with it. And so when you get older, when things happen, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna get through it because I've been there, done that, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
that
right.
having that confidence and knowing that you can cope, and that connection with your supports, like you mentioned, Rochelle, is really important. So that's another topic, the 7 C's of
Yeah.
resiliency, but that is really
I
important.
I think that is great that you brought that in. Resiliency is interesting because I think there's maybe a dichotomy of like, is it something that we build? Is it something that we identify? What do you folks think about that?
Well, I think there's that nature nurture combination. Definitely, there's the genetic part, because if you tend to have resilient parents, chances are you're going to carry some of that resiliency. And part of it's environment too,
Mm-hmm.
right? We all went through this pandemic. I'm still going through it. And we might say we're all in the same boat, which is not true. But anyway, but your
Mhm.
response can be the same person someone else can go through the exact same thing as you, but their response is so different.
Yeah.
Right?
Same
Yes.
water, different boat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that mind over matter, is so important. And speaking of the nervous system, you know that when we look at neurons, our gut health is really important too, because there's actually more neurons in our gut than there are in our spinal cord. So
Right.
that's, again, that whole integration, wellness.
Yes.
Like it's what you eat matters, everyone. Seriously, your sleep, your thoughts,
That's why they say eat healthy.
right? Right?
Absolutely.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Absolutely. Rochelle, what do you think about that? So, the concept of resilience, is it built? Is
It
it
I
identified?
believe it plays a big role
Mm,
in how to handle stress. It does because part of resilience also, I believe, is knowing yourself, knowing your capabilities, and knowing that having the knowledge of what you can and cannot do basically
mhm.
makes you resilient. And that's outside of the genetic part of what Tommy just described to us. But yes, also knowing yourself.
Absolutely. Yep. So, what do you think are, we've touched on some things about self care, identifying resilience. What are some other things for, that can help people manage when they're interacting with their stress?
Well, start with the basics, because people think it has to be something magical and expensive. No, resting, getting sleep, quality sleep, eating a healthy diet, right? Surrounding yourself with positive people. Your circle of friends, those 5 people around you, will pretty much determine who you're going to be, how you're going to
Mhm.
respond to situations,
Right.
right? Taking care of any chronic illnesses, managing your finances as best as you can, living within your means. Just,
Hmm.
you know, just training your mind to start off with gratitude. That's a big one. Start off the day with I am grateful for something. It could be a roof over your head. It could be you have a peaceful neighborhood. It could be that you have breakfast. You need to start with gratitude, because that is so
Hmm.
important. Because when things look horrible, you can be like, you know what? At least I have my kids. I have my old car. It still works, but it moves. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
gratitude.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How about you, Rochelle?
Well, again, Tommy is right. It's simple. It's not expensive. It can be as simple as meditating, relaxing, prayers, however you do it, you know, on your own, and exercise. Exercise actually gives you time away from other things because you have to manage your form, manage your
Yeah.
breathing, and those takes away from whatever is bothering you at the moment. Uh, Good food. Uh, Honestly, a simple, if you feel stressed, just go and maybe call somebody to eat with you in your favorite restaurant. I think that makes me happy and not stressed at all. That's those things are simple and then definitely doable uh,
Hmm.
by everyone.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. And exercise, we forgot that one. And breathing.
Yeah,
Yeah, breathing.
exercise and breathing. Yeah,
And you may think I've done all those things. Okay. So then maybe think about what is the stressor and like
Mhm.
kind of step outside of it and be like, okay, when being a stranger looking in, like, what is the worst thing that can happen here?
Yes.
Like, how let's get some perspective.
Assessing the
Assessing the
situation.
So
situation,
some like reality
Mhm.
testing.
right?
Where are
Yes,
we?
yes.
Right.
Yes.
That is really important.
Mhm.
Yep, definitely.
And if
Absolutely.
doing all that, it's still impairing your function, it's time to talk to your doctor, therapist, or something.
Yes.
Right? It's
Hmm.
important.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yep. There are people out there that are willing and waiting to talk,
Exactly.
walk alongside you.
Exactly. They would love to help you.
Hmm.
If you're in Calgary and in Alberta, we offer free counseling, so you can talk to us if you're so stressed.
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Um, so, what do you think are some, some ways that people can, I guess, positively impact their environment? Talk about the work environment specifically. And Tomi, you touched on it earlier about us being in when we're in a helping profession. Oftentimes, we're looking outward. We're not
Yes.
necessarily looking inward. What are some messages for people who are, might find themselves in that space?
Yeah. From the work perspective, is that where you're
Yeah.
okay? Wow, that's a really good question. There's an idea of psychological safety, which
Mhm.
is where you feel safe to ask questions, you feel listened and heard. Just if your leadership is really important that you go research what it is, get some support so you make sure that your business, your corporation, etc., is doing these things. Make
Mhm.
wellness part of everyday conversation. Again, I'm putting on the leaders. Model healthy behaviors. Okay,
Absolutely.
have a frank talk with all your management, because you might think that this person's amazing based on qualifications, but we know there's many bad managers out there who, from my experience with patients, they've made the employee's life a living hell.
Right.
So that whole piece, so it's the stress or burnout is not just the individual's responsibility. Yes, the individual just
Mhm.
has a huge part to play, but if they're working in toxic teams or toxic system, it's really hard. It's really hard to be resilient when you're treated like garbage and you don't get a break and you're working 24/7, 7 days a week. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Yeah.
Right? So just having that conversation, taking your breaks when you have them, like move yourself away from the computer or whatever it is. Have healthy boundaries. Be
Yeah.
unapologetic about saying, you know what, thank you, but this is not going to work for me now because I value my health and time with my family. Right? Be
Absolutely.
assertive, get help, get coached. Just start. Because if you don't start, they'll take and take and take and take and take. That's just human nature,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. What do you perceive to be barriers that kind of come up for folks?
Well, the one is the psychological safety.
Yeah.
That's a huge umbrella. Some people are afraid that they'll lose promotions, that they'll, discrimination, and that's just, yeah, that's huge. Or
Yeah.
perhaps they just don't feel confident to ask. They haven't gone through this. They new on the job,
Hmm.
or maybe there's other things in their personal life impacting their work. Right? Again, that wellness wheel, it's all connected.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Right? Oftentimes people say they're burnt out at work, but when you actually study it, it's actually they're burnt out at home. And ladies, listen up. They're burnt out at home, right? So yeah.
That really challenges that idea of leaving the baggage at the door,
Yeah.
which I know has been very difficult during the pandemic. It's really
Yes.
taught these boundaries have been totally enmeshed.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and speaking of boundaries, especially if you're working from home, create those boundaries if space gives you the luxury in your home. Have a separate office. Try not to bring work to the bedroom unless your office is in the corner, right? Have working hours. Set a
Hmm.
schedule. Set routines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rochelle, how about you? What any boundaries barriers that you've encountered for folks kind of
So with that,
establishing what they need?
Well, we said how to actually affect your environment, your work environment,
Hmm.
uh, not to be a part of the stress. Well, you usually, I know this is a very old saying, but say you start with yourself. You make sure that you don't cause stress to your coworkers if you're working in the office, and even when you're working at home, make sure that you know your game so that you don't pass on your your inefficiencies to others. um it's right, Tom is right again about the leadership. The leadership actually creates stress if it's bad, if it's bad leadership. Good leaderships, usually you see people who are very happy, not
Hmm.
stressed at all, just doing productive work, right? Um, so it is also important to have leaders who have, again, the resilience part of it, so that they don't cause stress to others, to their subordinates. Um, Another thing that's important is to have empathy.
Yes.
You
Mm.
Great.
know, understanding your other people around you, your coworkers. You know, just like you said, Tommy, there's people you don't know what's going on with their lives.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
sometimes they can be not working 100%, but just don't take it out on them that day. Maybe talk to them, you're right, talk to them. Ask them what's going on, behind the scenes, why this is you today. Uh, Simple things can actually help us not diminish stress, but just, make it more manageable and
Hmm.
make it less of a burden in our lives, in our daily lives.
Absolutely. Getting some support to actually redistribute it, right? Not in a way where I'm,
Yes,
I'm piling on you, but it's
right.
the way you can hold it or walk beside me as I'm
Delegate.
experiencing this. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Simple,
absolutely.
simple as that. Yes.
Yeah. I think empathy is a powerful
It is.
energy and curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of
Yes.
staying curious about my experience, not locking into the story of what it is.
Not being judgmental.
Yes,
Asking
Right.
those open-ended questions.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you were saying, told me earlier about the I liked what you said about it's not just the individual, but also the collective that has an impact
Yes, the
on us.
system.
Yeah. How do
Yeah.
we, how do we normalize this in these conversations in the community?
Well, in my own life, I just started having the conversation. That's what I did. It just has to start. It's not a hashtag for month or this May is mental health awareness month or something, but it's more than that. It's
Yes.
everyday conversation. Make wellness a priority in your
Hmm.
workplace. Have those discussions. Integrate it with normal conversation. Like let's
Yeah.
normalize. Like we talk about the weather.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, hey, you know, let's go for a walk, or what are you doing after work to relax, or how are things, if you're a business owner and you're like, okay, I don't know what to do, this is so new. And I get it, this whole wellness thing has been pushed forward, especially during this pandemic, which I think is
Yeah.
amazing. We have this hopefully one in a lifetime experience to get this right. But
Yeah.
anyway, um, just have those conversations. If you have an employee assistance program, learn about what it entails. I think everyone needs therapy. And I'm not saying that because you're Rochelle, you're a therapist, or it's like, everybody needs therapy. I say if you have a brain and a heart, you're gonna have a mental health challenge at some point, whether it's challenging with stress, relationships, or perhaps you wanna spoil it, like optimize your life. Maybe things are good, but they could be
Hmm.
better.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Why do we have to
Mm-hmm.
wait
Yeah.
till the divorce papers are almost signed, or the child is getting expelled from school before we have these conversations? And the
Yeah.
barriers to access mental health services is important. Like you're offering, free counseling services in the Calgary area, which is amazing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there's other resources out there as well. But you just have to start the conversation now. You have to model it now.
Yeah.
And if enough people model this behavior, we don't need a government mandate or rule or something to make health a priority. We don't need a leadership actually to make it health a priority. We, the people, can make health a priority.
Yeah.
And you know what? As business owners, if you have healthier employees, they're more productive, better attitude, less toxicity. Because we all know what one toxic individual in the workplace can do to an organization.
Yeah,
Can-
absolutely.
Like, right? So just be the start, be the change,
Yes.
be the change.
Yeah. Rochelle, how about you?
Yeah, like I said, first of all, start with yourself, and then you will basically see the effect that you do in your environment, you know. And talking about it sometimes is easy for people who actually are not experiencing severe cases,
Hmm.
but for those who actually are even scared to pick up the phone to start a conversation, we really have to have a way to reach them. We need to have a way to
Yes.
reach them, you know,
Yeah.
because even if the service here is free, not a lot of people are, accessing it. Um, Considering they don't have to spend a lot of, they don't have to spend money. They don't even have to get out of their houses because we can do it this way now, virtually.
Yeah.
But because of anxiety, they don't do it.
Absolutely.
So we have to find a way to reach them, you know.
How do we how do we reach the folks that might be on the margins of society? So let's talk about the accessibility with
Yeah,
I don't
that's
have technology. I don't
Uh,
live in a community that is robust enough.
you're right. Where we started was to partner, to have community partners who already have access to those population,
Mm,
and it really works. I guess great in a sense that they already have a um, the base, the population base of who we wanted to reach, really.
right.
Uh, Partnering with your community organizations actually is a very effective way of doing it.
Yeah.
yeah. That's when you said margins of society, that got my attention because there are people who, in their minds, they have bigger concerns like having a roof over their head,
Yeah.
feeding themselves, and frankly, in order to cater to someone's mental health concerns, that base needs to be there. Like
Yeah.
Maslow's triangle of hierarchy of
Absolutely.
needs, you need that in place. That's why
That
social
stability.
support, right, are so crucial because you can tell somebody who's living from couch to couch to go exercise and go to the gym. And they're like, really, I'm struggling to get food. I'm struggling to
Mm,
find a job.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yes.
again, that comes with compassion, right? Uh, you know, but it's amazing when we have these community supports that are there and just getting connected with people who know people or are the people who can help.
yeah. Absolutely. How do we spoke about this a little earlier. How do we share this with the younger generations? So not just our
Well,
children. Yeah.
find them where they are, which is social media, in their
Yeah.
schools,
Right.
you know, talk with
Yep.
other parents, have conversations. What are we doing about our kids? We know that kids are having like eating disorders and suicide and all this stuff and bullying and all this stuff. Like, what are we going to do as parents? What can we do? Those grassroots change. Because again,
Hmm.
we can talk to the school board, which is great, but we've all heard stories where the school board was told and nothing happened, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Michelle, what do you think on that?
Um, in our case right now, we have a lot of parents who actually reach out to us because of their children. You know,
Mm,
they're worried about them. Uh, it's really mind blowing how how 11-year-olds can actually think of taking their lives,
Yeah.
right?
right.
So I'm really just happy that we have we have a way to reach out to them and that we can help them out. We were able to have this organization that actually we don't choose who to help. It's for
Mhm.
everyone, and it just so happened that we have a lot of parents that are bringing their children to us. In the scope of just not even outside of the organization,
Yeah.
you have if you have kids, you basically model to your kids, and your kids will model to their friends,
Hmm.
right?
What?
And you also have to be involved in the lives of your children.
Yes.
Make, being being said that you have to know their friends too,
Mm,
so that when you can feel that their friends are experiencing something, you can actually start a conversation with them. Hey, are you
yeah.
okay? Are you okay today? You don't look like you're feeling okay today, so let's talk about it. You have to gain your children's friends trust too,
Yeah.
so that in times of when you need to reach out to them, you can.
You,
you know
even,
Yeah. You create that bridge, so it's
yeah.
already established.
And you made a really good point about gaining your children's trust in that bridge. That goes back to the topic of that bonding that needs to happen with
Mm,
child and caregivers. Because if there wasn't that a good attachment style, right? The child felt safe and listened to, and all those things in their home, the chances of them talking to you about their mental health is very little.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
parents, it's really, even if you grew up in a maybe dysfunctional home, you can still get those tools to do better. Just because
yeah,
that's the way your father did it or your grandpa did it doesn't mean you have to.
yeah,
You can
Yeah.
be the change. And
yes,
I say this with all sincerity that mental health concerns and challenges, if we focus on the family, which is the bedrock of society, if we have stronger homes, we'll have stronger societies.
I totally agree.
Like as a
we,
family,
we,
I saw that. And as a
yeah.
mom and as a woman, and I see it. Strong homes. So that's where it's
Strong homes produce strong kids
yes, strong
that will
homes.
be
Hmm.
valuable to the society
Yes.
Hmm.
and the people around them. That's
Yeah.
true.
I love what you're saying also in regards to you can earn secure attachment. It doesn't, it's not deterministic. Your history isn't deterministic of your future. That can
Yes.
shift.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So as we're starting to wind down here, I'm just curious around like what are some key takeaways? What feels important for people to grasp? Rochelle?
Well, go ahead, Michelle.
Well, okay. Hopefulness matters. Point of view matters. Prayer, meditation, and relaxation matters. Knowing yourself matters. Stress is not all doom and gloom. It can be a force to move you towards your goals, or it can motivate you. You know. So it's really just changing the way you look at it, changing your perception about it. I know it's not as easy as I'm saying it right now. It's easy for me because I've done it over and over again. I
So
have
it's a
I've
repetitive
had a lot of
process.
practice. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the key takeaways. I think those things that I mentioned matters.
Yeah. I love what you're saying about the repetitive process, and especially around, sometimes we have to circle around the drain for something to drop. It takes time to get
Hmm.
to a space where it's easier to bounce back or move
Yeah.
through it.
Hey, you
Yeah.
don't only train in sports. You can also train your emotions.
Yeah.
What did they say? 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Become a professional absolutely at something.
I guess I have more than that. So
Yeah. Tell me, how about you?
Well, this topic is about anxiety. Anxiety is part of life. It's normal. There's distress, eustress. The key is we're not making our anxiety chronic,
Hmm.
um, and without a cause or reason. If you're thinking that okay, this is hitting me hard, then that's a sign that you should talk to somebody who's professional, who is certified, who knows what they're doing, because not everyone that you see online is a mental health expert or therapist or you know that's just
Hmm.
be careful out there and talk to those who really can help you, and it's important that you connect with them as well. Just because they have all the credentials doesn't mean they're the right fit for you. If there's no bond, if you feel like they're stiff, that they're too like ugh for you, then try your best to find somebody else. You don't have to stick with that same person, but build a relationship with that person or the community that helps you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just see if there's any questions that we will, any viewers. Okay, no questions at this point. It's all right. So any, before we send out, any remaining points that you would like to share?
You got this. You can, yeah.
Yeah. The little words of encouragement for folks out there. We got this.
I mean, talk to a friend, talk to your family members, hug someone, hug your loved ones. Like it actually, it hugs. It heals a lot. It heals a lot of what we're going through. It's very important to be close to your loved ones and your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Value them.
Connection. Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you so much for the conversation today and joining us.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
been so rich. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. For the folks at home there, I hope that you're walking away feeling curious about your experiences and feeling that you could bring some self-compassion as well. Thank you for joining us today.